And lastly, that's the TV events for this year done in the first year of the seniors. 4 TV events on the calendar for next year, as well as the Senior World Championships expanding to 32 players from the 24 it was this year. What have you made of the seniors' first year? And if you were in charge, what would you change?
I think for the most part, it's just been great to see the Legends darts, seniors darts back on TV, because as we've said on the show, when they first announced the seniors was coming, that was back in April 2021. So it was a long time waiting for then that first event in February, best part of a year, build up to that. But I think just seeing the Legends events back on TV after a while, 2008 was the last time we had it with the League of Legends, that it has been long overdue. And I think, yeah, there are some things that I would personally like to change. And for me, I think it's probably the planning of these events, where they sit in the calendar, because I think the second and third events maybe were a little bit too close. And I think we've seen over time that the first event, the World Championship, there was a lot of buzz around that event and that weekend. And okay, as Jason Francis pointed out in our chat, the second and third events, they were up against big sporting events. The second one, we had the Champions League final that weekend. The third one just gone, we've had Wimbledon going on, we've had the British Grand Prix, the Formula One, so they've been up against it in those weekends. So for me, I'd probably like to see it spread out a little bit more across the year. As we touched on, there's going to be 4 TV events next year, so maybe one every 2 or 3 months. And as Jason said, his plan is to have at least one event a month for the seniors, whether that's a TV event, an open or a qualifier, to keep the seniors tour a little bit more active next year. And I think that will be a good thing going forward. But for me, if I was to be in charge, I think one of the main things I would do, maybe look to put the World Championship on towards the end of the year. And the reason I say that is because the last question, we could have Robert Thornton, the defending champion, we could have him, maybe 3, 4, 5, who knows how many players go to Q School, get their tour cards, and if they were in the field for the World Seniors, they'd be out of it. And that would be a shame to see them miss it out, and then have to find other players to come in and take their place. So you could see a few big names miss out. So for me, I'd probably look to put the World Championship on as there maybe event towards the end of the year. Put it on maybe October, November, December time, somewhere around that. And by that point, you will know all the players that will be eligible to play. You won't have to worry about what happened to a Q School a few weeks earlier. So that'd probably be my main change I'd like to make. And I guess really one of the highlights, I've got to give a shout out to Bobby George, because he's probably the most honest pundit we've ever had in darts, and we don't see him very often now on TV. The World Seniors, that was his return, and it is always a pleasure to see him on TV, hear his opinion, because there's no other pundit in the game like Bobby George. So good to see him back involved, and it has been good to see a lot of these legends play as well. John Lowe, that was the last time we're going to see him play on TV. He said he's only playing the first year of the events, then he's going to be an ambassador for the World Seniors going forward. So to get to see those players play again, there may be some others that we don't see play again, but just to see him one more time has been good to see.
Well, I'll play a little devil's advocate and argue something different regarding the timing of the World Championships. And I think you make a good point, but I'll make the counterpoint that we're going to see more quote unquote legends falling off the tour each year than we're going to see those winning back their tour cards at Q School. It's granted, some years will be different, but more often than not, we're going to see more players over 50 who fall off the tour than those who are over 50 that are able to get back on it. And that, I think, lends itself towards the event making more sense somewhere at the beginning or even in the middle of the year, even if it means a couple players who you might have thought you would get won't end up in the field. You might end up with Robert Thornton going to Q School and winning back his card and therefore not being able to compete. Well, if it was in November or December, he would have been able to. But I think it's worth it because you open up some players who are fresh, who are going to bring some added quality to the event, who will be able to go in and try to win some of those spots in the field and will be legitimate contenders for it. Because, well, Robert Thornton, okay, he didn't have tour card last year, but he's recently played on the tour, and he was playing a lot on the tour last year, even without a tour card. And that showed. His recent experience made him one of those players who at the back end of the tournament was able to, as the matches got longer, as the event dragged on, was able to lift his game and win it. I think having those players in the field is a good thing because it gives that recent marketability and that little added quality that might not be there if it's all legends. Granted, the main marketability is the legends. It is Phil Taylor. It is John Lowe. It is those players from yesteryear. And making sure that they're happy and willing to compete, at least some of them, is going to be key to driving attendance and driving viewership going forward. And I think they did a phenomenal job of that. That's why they were able to get these 3 events with decent prize pools, and seemingly will be able to come back next year, not just with the same 3, but to grow it and add a 4th. That is a tremendous job, and one that I think outperformed my expectations. I thought the World Championship maybe would just be that one carrot for each year as something to bring them all together and maybe get some televised interest, but I didn't think there'd be enough to have more than one televised event. It seems like I was wrong. We'll see how those 4 events go next year and whether it continues from there. But if they really think they're able to grow this, then they're outperforming what I thought they'd be able to do. That said, what would I change? Well, I would give me a refund for the for this past weekend's event. I didn't buy the entire package. I just bought the final session because I was busy. I was traveling. But I wanted to watch the final session. And even though my Wi-Fi was even but by the 247 Sports own email exchange with them 9 times, almost 9 times the speed that it was needed for it to work, it wasn't working. I could not get it to load, and they would not give me a refund, even though I asked for one less than 15 minutes after purchasing it because it wasn't working. If they really want to nickel and dime me over £5, well, then I have no use for the senior tour, and I will leave it at that. Because I'm not going to support something if they really cared that much about £5, especially after I had bought the World Championship, the full thing, for £30, and had bought the previous event as well. So I'm done watching it, even if I was only watching it a little bit, because I'm not paying £5 on a gamble that it's going to work.